Go hang a salami. I'm a lasagna hog. Here we are again, folks, in our respective pod studios. Fresh off episode 10.
Oh, great episode.
1-0. Yeah, our best one yet. And
Definitely.
we also had our first React Series episode on
Super Bowl 56.
the big game. Yep.
We had some thoughts.
Was fun.
Yeah.
We had some thoughts. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a fun thing for us to do. Anyway, so we are well into February now. The shortest, definitely the coldest month here in the northern plains of Michigan. And there's actually more to come on the weather front, so to speak. So stay tuned for that. But Mark, what's new with you, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, we like to stay positive, but on the weather front, February is objectively the worst month. Thankfully, it's the shortest
month, man.
I mean, we've had some nice days here and there. I know we don't want to talk about the weather all the time, but
a little bit of sun.
It's a lot of crummy days too, you know?
Yeah.
I've tried to sneak in a few runs here and there, right? It's one of my big goals for the year, but the trails are
running,
slick.
Man.
I told
Doesn't
you
take much ice.
No, last week I did fall. I didn't slip. I stubbed my toe because it was like moguls, for ice basically.
Yeah.
And there was a guy like 100 yards in front of me. I went down. Oof.
You made an audible sound too, right? You made this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's it speaks to the fact that everybody that you see in nature running, biking, whatever, they're like all plugged into headphones, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
So
but I do note I caught up to him a quarter mile down the road and just kind of gave him a little nod as I went by. So
awesome. He's like, who's this stranger who has not fallen, but you did fall? So I'm doing a little bit of running myself. I've had some time off running. Partially my choice, partially my body telling me to maybe take it back a step or two. So I haven't run much since October when I had that marathon, but it's hard to believe that I used to be a diehard winter runner, 10 plus years. I always said that I was weather agnostic. It sounded kind of fancy, but it basically meant that whatever happened. I just, there's no bad weather, just bad clothes kind of adage. But
there is,
man, I don't know if I'll ever get back into it. It's like that. Once you break that streak of doing something, it's so hard to train your body to accept sort of the misery. And I don't know, winter running, maybe I'm going to be a 3-season guy. I don't know.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Well, speaking of sports, let's give the fans the rundown on episode 11 here. What we on tap?
Yeah. So for sports, sticking with the winter theme, we're going to talk about hockey, specifically the NHL and why it's not popular. For finance, we've got a heavy lift, the semiconductor industry.
Say that 5 times fast, right?
Chips. Yeah. And the wild card, we're sticking with the theme here, winter activities in general. And we'll give our hot takes.
Maybe cold takes?
Maybe our cold takes. There we go. Yeah.
How does wind chill play into those, I guess, right?
Drops at 10 degrees.
Anyway, so let's get into it. 3, 2, 1. Let's get into it. Double title reveal there, guys.
I noticed that.
For 11, episode 11.
But yes.
They really don't care what they talk about. They just want to have a good time while talking online. Let's get into it.
So our first topic, why isn't hockey more popular in the US? I'm going to start with you, Mark. When was the first NHL game? Do you know?
Honestly, no. Off the top of my head, I was going to guess sometime in the 30s or 40s, 1930s or 40s.
So you were in the right century, at least.
Okay.
1917 featured the Montreal Wanderers and the Toronto Arenas.
So that's NHL game, maybe not hockey.
Yes, this is NHL. And I will say that a lot's changed for the better, and the names have. I don't know, the Wanderers and Arenas. It's hard to think about selling merch for those.
I think the Wanderers is kind of cool, actually.
It's okay, I'll give you that. The Arenas is just basically they play in one.
At least they aren't animal names, but
yeah. The Wanderers won that first game 10-9.
Congratulations!
Exciting all 700 fans.
Yeah.
But man, a scoreline like that, there may not be a problem with the NHL being popular if 10-9 was the average score, right? But anyway, second quick question. Name the 4 major sports in America.
NFL, and NFL.
You're right. You're completely right. So
NBA and whatever it's called, MLB, baseball.
MLB.
Yeah.
So NHL
I was not going to say MLS. I know you wanted me to.
No, I put that in the notes, the proverbial pinky finger, right?
Yeah.
MLS, Major League Soccer, which we'll talk about briefly. But yeah, hockey's a distant fourth, though. I mean, if you're ranking or even trying to just talk about popularity in general, basically any metric you're going to have, the NHL is basically in the minor leagues. It's the distant step cousin.
Mhm.
But anyway, my question is, I have many questions for you, Mark, obviously, but why? So hockey's fast paced. Visually, I think it's a good visual game, save the small puck. That's a huge issue. It's high energy, it's loud, it's concussive. The rules are mostly understandable, and I say
put
that
the
with
puck
the
in the
caveat,
net, right?
right? I mean, of course, like football has thousands of rules. Hockey has some rules, but I think generally speaking, it's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly impressive, right? I mean, skating at that speed,
Takes
passing,
skill.
shooting. Yeah, it's a very skilled sport. No matter what you say, you easily see that. It's physical. There's a lot of hitting, and we generally like physical sports. But despite these attributes, and it's an afterthought in most markets, and they've had a century to get this thing right. I mean, 1917 was a while ago, and a lot of times
105.
elapsed. So anyway, moving on, I'm going to give you guys 5 reasons why I think hockey is playing second fiddle to most of the other major sports in the U.S. And then Mark,
fourth fiddle. Yeah.
you're going to hit me with fourth fiddle. You're going to hit me with some rebuttals.
Yeah.
So number 1, numero uno, the U.S. loves being the best at things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hockey's not a sport that the U.S. dominates.
Nope.
The biggest stars in the league have been from some time, usually Canadian or European.
Case in point, look at the Olympics right now. But
yes, we lost this, I think, Slovakia or something.
So
yeah, what do you think about that?
You're just saying because the U.S. isn't the best, we just ignore the sport.
We just don't care in the same way, right?
Sure, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I mean, I think it's a pretty bold statement, but I think when people watch football, basketball, these are American athletes who went to American institutions, universities. Maybe it's a factor. They seem more relatable. We feel like we kind of know them. Obviously, we don't. And honestly, there shouldn't be any reason why a player from international wouldn't be just as impressive. But maybe that does play into it at some capacity. Number 2, though, lack of star power. If you ask someone in the U.S. to name the biggest athletes in the world, you might eventually get down to a hockey player, but it's not certainly going to be your top 5 or 10, right?
Probably not. No.
So how does this one sit with you?
I think that's a symptom of the lack of popularity, not the reason for it. Yeah. We talked about before at some point about how you can't see the face of a hockey player. That's what people kind of say. So it's like a faceless body. But the NFL, you can't see their face either. You know what I mean? So that argument's kind of moot. For the NBA, obviously, you can see the player's face, so you maybe have a connection with them. So I don't know if that's really valid.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point. I think in some ways, is hockey not popular, or is its popularity just seemingly dwarfed by basically football?
Yeah,
right?
So it's all relative, maybe.
It's relative. I mean, hockey is a very popular sport. There are millions of people,
right,
in the U.S. That's 6 zeros that could still mention Ovechkin and Crosby. I mean, there's certainly household names nationwide, maybe not to the same extent as the Tom Brady's of the world. So, I mean, maybe where we're looking at this is we're too harsh on hockey because we're saying it's not popular, but it is popular. It's just the magnitude of everything else is just dwarfing it, right?
Maybe,
so,
yeah.
Kind of a thought there.
Okay.
Number 3, it's cold.
Yep.
It's cold. Becoming a fan of a sport often happens during your youth when you yourself participate and play it. And kids don't always skate in all parts of the U.S. This is changing, though. This is changing. I mean,
with changing, but there's certain things you can't change. I mean, this is one of the bigger factors to me. I mean, if you're in Tampa,
this is a big factor.
You're not skiing outside ever. You got to have an arena next door, so that's going to be a very small chance you actually get exposed. And I think this argument, if it's true, the inverse is true too, right?
Huge, yes.
If you're up in Toronto or you're not playing, soccer outside in the winter, you have to have an indoor arena for that. So the accessibility of these sports in your youth definitely matters.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, location matters.
Why'd you say it's changing? You think it's changing?
The reason why I think it's changing is you see when I've looked at just the different rosters of different players in the AHL, there's a lot more people from California and some of the sunnier states. But basically, it's just
California. I don't know.
California's the anomaly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of places where there's big money. I mean,
yeah.
So, but no, I mean, I think this is a big factor. It's cold. Lack of diversity is the number 4 reason that I'm going to present to you guys. It's by far the least diverse of the 4 major sports. And essentially, I think that plays into the total popularity of it. Simple as that, really.
Yeah, I think it's part of the same conversation we just had. It's all about your youth exposure, right?
Yep. Who you see playing and growing up.
In the U.S., all you need is a basketball, and you can go pick up basketball at the local park.
Every small village city has a court.
Yeah, there's not pick up hockey in El Paso.
Yep. So basically, I mean, I think you're right. The popularity of hockey is always going to be linked at some level to the fact that it's a sport that isn't really accessible to lower income families. Obviously, I know the NHL has programs and there's nonprofit groups who are trying to change these things, which I applaud. It
is interesting. It's many
small.
Of the players are European. If you are a casual European hockey fan, are you watching the NHL? Is that your professional league?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that there's a lot of options
because for soccer or football, it's all local to where you are in the world, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's no way that
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. It's an interesting point. And then number 5 kind of dovetails into 4 and 3. It's expensive.
Money.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And I think I may have mentioned that previously, but yeah, I mean, you wrote in your notes that you think this is probably the number one reason.
Definitely. And it all ties into everything else, the youth exposure. Again, to play basketball, you need a ball and a hoop. To play football or soccer, all you need is the ball for that sport. Hockey, you need your sticks, your pucks, and ice skates and a frozen rink, right? It's got to be clear and smooth too. You can't just do it like you think, you just go out on the lake or the river.
No, it's completely different. You won't be able to get any, you can't skate at all on that. What about TV? Do you think that the NHL presents a competitive TV package, so to speak?
Yes, I think they do, but I think maybe they didn't. It's hard to see the puck. Remember, we got the Fox tracker, the blue
they were trying to put
stuff.
A blue arc around like a comet or something.
But think about it, 50 years ago, we're watching black and white. There's no way that sport's going to translate. Whereas football is kind of big and slow and lumbering, right? You can see that still. I don't remember seeing black and white hockey footage. Maybe it's because I'm not as big of a fan. I don't know. So I think not having that.
Things, did you look for it?
You didn't have that ritual of watching it around the table. And so that didn't translate to the generations, whereas maybe football did, right?
That's a good point. So those are some of the reasons why probably hockey isn't as popular. I'm going to give you guys 2 quick rebuttals.
Okay.
2 things the NHL can do to make it more popular. First one, it's going to be controversial. I know that there's going to be folks who disagree with me. Abolish fighting. Obviously, we're in a golden age of health concerns. The NFL has concussions and other problems like that.
This is the golden age. I don't know. I hope there's a better age.
Yeah, that is true.
But
unfortunately, it's a big thing right now. So we kind of are moving to really putting an emphasis on speed, finesse, athleticism, and people who basically are paid to basically be the fighters, the brawlers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure there's really a space for that in this new league that's bigger on the sort of the showmanship and the speed and the I just don't think it, and this is something that I've heard from a lot of different people. So,
everybody, I agree wholeheartedly. And it's in any sport. Fighting just stops the game. I hate it in baseball too. You know what I mean?
It's very awkward. I mean, and basically you can't fight in any of the lower leagues. I mean, you can't fight in college.
You want to check somebody and get mad. That's fine. But these giant take the gloves off. It's just ridiculous. Just play freaking hockey. You're not scoring points with your punches. So
I think we're moving away from that. And then, number 2, relocate to more promising cities. There was this whole movement to put NHL teams in sort of like the South, and it hasn't worked super well in terms of participation and attendance. There's a lot of cities that could possibly even put 2 teams in. They mentioned Toronto, Montreal. I mean, basically Canada. Canada can support 2 teams.
Yeah, I don't know.
We see this in the other leagues with LA and New York City, but you don't like this, Mark.
No, I don't think I agree. You'd have to prove to me that the market wasn't already saturated. Yeah, I know Chicago. You got White Sox and
Chicago, yes, being the third,
North and South teams. Like, but I don't know.
I
just say I feel like the market's already saturated. I'd like to see a different way of trying to expand the audience. Maybe moving south didn't work, but I don't know.
Maybe there's too many teams. I actually read an article doing research for this that suggested that there were twice as many teams as that there should be the NHL. We should have 15 teams.
Everyone's always about hitting like 30 teams, right?
It's 30 is this 30 magic 32. Number. It's like it is huge though.
Be good with 16. Amount. Why is 16 not okay? Right.
Right. It's
Cubs, by the way, was a team I kept not thinking of.
Gotcha. So basically, those are some suggestions that I had read. I think partially they're interesting.
Maybe I do have to point out. Thanks for the ideas, but you actually didn't address any of like the root issues we referenced above.
The root issues
all about accessibility, right?
The root issues were not addressed.
Youth accessibility, and unless we are, let's say changing the global weather so that ice is everywhere. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Not the opposite, honestly. So what's your big takeaway? Hockey?
Here's my idea.
Can be done.
Crazy idea. Pivot and make the sport focused around roller hockey or street hockey or roller blades or whatever you want. Man. Exactly. Yes. That way you can use it in any warm weather. I mean, you still need the skates, the blades, whatever you want to call them, but you could do that in a parking lot, right? You don't need the ice. What do you think?
I mean, my favorite memories of playing hockey, so to speak, are basically in a driveway with a tennis ball. Yeah. You just kind of whap it around.
Now you don't have the same kind of beautiful dexterity probably on a parking lot as you do on ice, right? It's not quite as precise, but
I think it should be a viable option, and I think that people will be more associated with the sport.
Field hockey. I have no opinion on field hockey. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. So, final question: do you think hockey will be more popular in 2030 than it is in 2022? More popular.
I will take the over. I'm going to say yes. It's going to become number 3. Because baseball is dead.
Yeah, I think you sort of hit on the head there in terms of the 4 major sports. You have 2 that are sort of going in this direction, basketball and football, obviously. And then we could have honestly done this podcast on why is baseball losing fans and not being as important, right?
We'll need 4 hours for that. So.
I know.
Just like a game.
It's so long. So anyway,
my answer is yes.
I'm going to agree with you. And I think your answer is perfect. So, finance. What do we have for finance, sir?
Have you seen the price of cars recently, Ian?
It is through the roof, my friend, right?
It is. Do you know why?
So I think that part of the problem is that there's no new cars. They're super backlogged. Mm-hmm. And so supply chain issues, supply and demand. And because of the fact that there's no new cars, the used car market is completely turned on its head. Yeah. And they're offering you basically the same value for a car you bought 5 years ago. I know,
which we always joke, that'd be great. I'll sell my car, make some money, but I have to buy another car in return. So it's net neutral. Anyway, one of the big reasons is semiconductors, right? Chip shortages. I know we keep hearing it. It's not just cars.
It's not potato chips.
No, your phones, your airplanes, your televisions, your smart refrigerator, right? Chips. The demand is just through the roof, And if you ever want to see those flying cars have been promised for decades, we're going to need even more chips, right?
I want them by 2030, same as when hockey's going to get popular again.
Maybe 2040. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. So there's a cool website out there called Visual Capitalist, which has tons of data visualized, right? And I was checking them out, and according to them, 54% of all semiconductors are fabricated by one company, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is located in Taiwan, right?
Taiwan.
So that's 54%. Number 2 is Samsung, who we all know, at 17% in South Korea. And then number 3 is United Microelectronics Corporation, big names, which is UMC, also in Taiwan. The big takeaway being Taiwan, China, and South Korea make up 87% of all fabricated chips, right?
That means chips that are actually manufactured.
Yes, there's
hard-coded, hardwired.
Fabless, quote-unquote, chips, which is a company like Intel. They design the chip, but they're not fabricating it. Those are mostly done in Asia.
Yeah, I never thought we'd say the word fabulous on our pod, but here we did it.
Right.
And
Fabulous, maybe, but not fabulous. But
87% of anything is a huge number. I can't believe we've gotten away with having that kind of percentage from essentially 3 companies.
Yeah, it's odd.
One country.
It'd be a monopoly if it was in one
I mean,
company, but it's global. So
right. I'm amazed. And before this whole story came about, I didn't realize that there was these smart chips in everything. You know, I basically didn't. I knew that cars had all these new features and things like that, but I had no idea how embedded and how many separate individual chips.
Literally embedded. Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of people probably didn't realize that. I mean, this is kind of like the stuff that's secretly operating everything that we interact with. I mean,
it's in your remotes, it's in your Ring doorbells, it's in your vacuum cleaners. Like,
I mean, just how many are within 30 feet of you when you're in your home? I mean, it's got to be a staggering number. And so anyway, where are we at?
Yeah. Well, what we're not going to do is discuss geopolitics, right? But it is important to note.
Yes.
We said that 87% was China, Taiwan, and South Korea, but China, of course, considers Taiwan part of its territory. And last I checked, to look at the Olympics, China and the US were not really best buddies, right?
Yeah, there's no collaborative podcast that they put together on Saturday nights.
No.
Put that out there.
So Ian, you had a great solution for hockey. What is the solution for chips in America, in the world, really?
I mean, basically the first 2 are money.
First 2 are money, yes.
And then I think the urgency is hit a level
seriously
where it's hurt consumers enough that it's going to spur an action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the first stage of things where you complain, there's a general shortage, and there's like this time where like it's a real huge shortage. We're at that point now, obviously.
Right. When you look at inflation, there's inflation that's high, right. And then there's like the chip related inflation,
it's like this
which
triple
is even
whammy
higher.
Yeah, just mushing us. And so we got to produce more chips.
More chips.
I think that there's no reason why we can't do that in America. Obviously, it's not gonna happen overnight. But basically, if this sort of global disruption, you know, COVID issue has taught us one thing, it's that we have to fix this or start to fix this now.
Mm-hmm.
We need more options, and it's not as if the supply chain issues are going to be resolved with just more factories in Dayton, Ohio, but we have to start at least talking about maybe getting these built someplace else, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only solution, the short-term fix, is the government intervention, right? And it's
we can't have these couple companies produce more. That it's just physically impossible.
And if you sign the paper and you break around today, how many years? At least 1, 2, maybe 3 to get chips produced. Like, so people can't mess around. We need subsidies, we need incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the long term, globally, things will smooth out. We need some action, though.
We do need some action. I think it's impossible to also believe that, you know, we're going to develop within the next even 5 years a new microchip, super chip that's going to be easier to produce. For a while, they're going to be difficult. They're going to take time. Obviously, we're not going to turn our backs on the fact that everything moving forward, from your toaster, to your furnace, to your, I mean, everything is going to have these running in the background.
Yeah.
So to somehow think that we're going to pause or take a step back is
And regarding the super chips, right, it's kind of 2 sides to the coin. There's the manufacturing, there's also the R&D. So we didn't touch on this, but TSMC and Samsung, according to Visual Capitalist, are the only companies capable of producing the 5 nanometer chips that go into iPhones. Everybody else is on a larger size, right? So
I don't know. Yeah. That'd be even smaller, I guess, but yeah, I mean, iPhones is basically a good example. I mean, the number of iPhones manufactured and sold is absolutely staggering.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you recycle the old ones, that's great for a lot of the components.
Right.
But if the chips are outdated, then that's at least, it's like not a 1-to-1 recycling, right?
Yeah.
You get the metals out, but not the same chip, not the technology.
So do you feel optimistic, Mark, that because the urgency is so high, that, you know, there's going to have to be some pretty serious changes?
I feel optimistic because maybe I'm being cynical. Money drives everything. And so if chips are the future, and that's where consumers are going to spend their money, then I would hope the government finds a way to fund that here so that we can ultimately make more money in our, capitalist economy. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
Yes. I cannot imagine a time and place where they're not manufacturing 15 quadrillion iPhones every quarter.
It's the future. I mean, this is what's happening. You need your flying car. So fly to the hockey game.
Dang right we do.
Like,
dang right. I mean, maybe I guess the silver lining is that all these factors sort of coming together, this confluence of supply chain disruptions is finally shining a light in the fact that this is probably like one of many things that are going to be revealed to be like
necessity
very efficiently
drives change and innovation, right?
Yes.
You need external forces to change things sometimes. You know, we all know it's broken. You need to ignore it. Well, now we can't.
Can't ignore it. We cannot ignore it.
It's a good thing.
So anyway, I think that we'll all be hearing more about this in the coming months. Stay tuned. And if this is the first time you're hearing about it, we're glad to be talking to you about this.
Breaking news, right?
Breaking news. You heard it here, episode 11. Put this in the time capsule. So
right, let's hit the wild card again.
So the wild card we have is we're just going to go right into winter again.
It's a winter theme today. Sorry.
Winter theme, winter wonderland, 13 degrees out. Let's just hit it. So I'm going to do kind of a rapid fire.
All right, I'm ready.
Section. I'm going to hit you some questions.
Yeah.
So the first question is shovel, snowblower.
Mm-hmm.
What's your hot take on this, man? This is like shovel.
I'm team shovel.
You're a shovel guy. Why?
I've had a snowblower, but every freaking year I spend more time getting the dang thing running and taking up space in my garage than the time it takes to shovel the snow. Maybe twice a year. I wish I had it, right? When you get that like monster 12 inches.
And it's heavy.
It doesn't happen. It's normally, you can take care of it. The only time I do wish I had it, again, once or twice a year, is if like the snow all comes during the day when you're at work. And by the time you get home, 3 people came over the driveway and it's all been packed down. But otherwise, no, team shovel. You're on the same team, right? I hope so.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like kind of a pet peeve. It's been slowly simmering in my head for months now. I love a good shovel. I think obviously
a good workout too, right?
Yes, obviously there are health concerns if you got a bad back
and you're 65.
Right. So I mean, but if you can do a 30-minute shovel, great full body workout. You're in the elements, you're breathing in that cold air. There's no fumes, there's no exhaust. I mean, I take pride in the fact that when I shovel my driveway, I'm usually competing air quotes. It's just me with many different neighbors, and they don't know it, right? They don't know it. They might if they're listeners. Hopefully they're not. Anyway,
hopefully they are.
I basically whoop them. I'm able to keep up with the snowblower. My driveway is just as good. It looks perfect, just like theirs does.
Would you say you're a speed shoveler? Is that what you classify yourself as?
I'm not going super fast. I just think that you're constantly moving. I mean, it's a different motion.
Okay.
So basically, I'm team shovel. Yes, there are times where you have a snowpocalypse. Obviously, they come in handy occasionally, but shovel, man, I love it.
Yeah.
So what makes a good snow for you, Mark? Talk about your preferred snow.
All right. Depends on the activity I want to do, right? There's 2 kinds. There's the light and fluffy, which is great for adventuring in the woods because you can walk around. But for building snowmen or forts or snowballs, you need wet snow. Like this winter, we've had a day or 2 where it's wet snow. We've had a lot of the light fluffy stuff.
It's like dry. It's soulless.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's 2 answers for you. 2 good kinds, either dry or wet.
And then the third being the combination for sledding, right? Where you kind of want.
Yeah,
you want a down base and a little fluff on top to kind of shoot through.
Right. And then it kind of gets packed on a little bit and you've got like your path or your channel.
You got to work that channel though.
It depends, I think, on the slope you have and the sled apparatus that you're using.
Apparatus, yes.
Apparati.
So for me, I definitely agree. I think my preference, if I can be, playing snow god, is first couple snows, I want it to be wet, a little bit heavier, because then you can do like the whole snowball, the building a fort, get your snowman up and running, do that. Yes, but then further down the road, get that established. But if you're going to be doing anything like snowshoeing, hiking, just kind of being in the snow.
Yeah, we even touch on like skiing and snowshoeing. Yeah.
I basically think that, some of the lighter, fluffier stuff is better. It sparkles nicer. You can generally play in it a little easier.
Just your snow, not your content.
Right, exactly. So that's my snow. This is a double hitter here. So would you rather have really cold temps, no snow, or snow and like that upper 20s, low 30s kind of temps?
Yeah, definitely snow and warmer. I don't like it if it's 0 and no snow. That's just like
when it hurts your
the
face.
only time I like that is if you step outside like at 11 o'clock at night and it's cold and dark and still, and you can like look up and
that feeling is just amazing.
You like feel like you're one with the universe. But other than that moment, I want it snow and the warm upper 20s or low 30s. You helped me a couple years ago. I tried doing a backyard ice rink.
PTSD from that one. Yeah.
It was fun, but I would say unsuccessful. Lessons
learned. Yeah.
Any hole, it's like what they say about your house. If you have like 50 little pins around the house, you got a hole like, as big as a basketball for air to leak out. The same thing in your tarp or whatever's in the ground. Any little dinky holes
water
on there,
will find a hole to go to water.
Yes. And if it's going through that hole, running water does not freeze.
Nothing you do will ever, you can't give it enough water.
Hoses and buckets of water in the backyard. And yeah, the other issue was you got to have high walls. You can't have like a 1-inch little wall because your yard is not as flat as you ever think it is.
And you have a particularly visually flat yard.
Very flat.
I can't think of a flatter yard. But it's not perfectly flat.
It's the flattest yard in America, definitely, but not flat enough for a 1-inch wall on your ice hockey rink.
That's a physics lesson.
Yeah. So I'll try to get in the future. Get some 4x somethings and
taller walls, maybe flatten your yard out.
Yeah. Taller walls, I hear it always works. So
yeah, I mean, basically, I think that super cold temperatures are just frankly annoying. Maybe it's easier to drive without snow on the roads, but basically, I don't want to be outside where the weather hurts my face within 30 seconds.
It's like you're on Mars.
When you breathe in and like your nostrils freeze immediately.
You feel your lungs.
You get like a little heart attack every time you go outside. And then I mean, are you a saucer sled guy? Or are you a snow tube person? What's like
probably when we were kids, just like a standard sled. We didn't really have saucers, but we recently had the snow tubes, and those were quite successful. The downside is if you go crazy, you hit a rock, you puncture your tube.
That's true.
If you hit your saucer, you're stunned in a rock. All you do is have like a scratch in the plastic usually.
I remember.
I'm not answering the question.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I remember growing up doing the saucer sleds.
Yeah.
But the rare treat of doing the snow tube, you're on top of it. You're on top of the snow a little bit. And I mean, you can fly. You can seriously fly on a well-groomed track.
If it's groomed and slickened.
A snow tube will just, you have no friction. But saucer sleds are fine too. I mean, I don't do like the long tobogganing things or like those kind of stuff.
I think I've done it once in my life, and we were probably at like
you have to have the right snow. It's got to be grooved well. You got to have some height to it.
It's terrifying. You can die, right?
I'm sure it happens. This is a positive podcast.
Sorry. Okay.
So my last question, maybe the most important. What is the Mark and family? What's the snowman look like? Like, what are you guys creating?
Oh, well, I start with
what are the attributes?
A large round ball, and I put 2 more on top of it that are smaller.
You're a classics guy.
Yeah. Sometimes with that wet snow, you get over ambitious, right?
You always get over ambitious. The first ball, you just keep rolling that sucker, and then you lose interest. And ball 2 and 3 are just like you don't care.
Lift up number 2, and if it's as big as you, it's
like an Atlas stone at that point,
Yeah. But I love putting little sticks in it for the arms. We don't, we use rocks or something for the eyes.
Yeah, I'm usually out of coal at the time, so and usually what
you don't keep little balls of coal available just for.
Oh. Usually I'll just give it my hat, I'll have a cold head for a while, but I'll put my hat on it, go inside, and then 20 minutes later I'll come outside and get my hat back. But
if I do it in the backyard and I put a carrot in the nose, the dogs inevitably steal the nose.
Gosh.
And then my children have nightmares. But
honestly, I just do sort of like a Voldemort thing. I just kind of make an indentation or like the idea of a nose. I don't know.
The problem is now I'll spend 20 minutes building the snowman, and then my son, he of course likes to knock it over, right? So boom, down on the ground.
We built one snowman and it lasted probably about 5 minutes.
What I do with it though is I then use those bases, and I use that to build my fort. That's the base for the fort, right? So it's a second life.
Everybody plays
Frosty.
Hoth in the winter. You got to have your base, your operational headquarters, and yes, you can play King of the Hill with those bases. You can.
Very important lesson is to know when to throw a snowball and when to not throw an ice ball. It's a very important difference.
Is there ever a time to throw an ice ball? Your enemies, maybe.
Maybe.
Good. So it sounds like you have a lot of really interesting takes on winter, Mark. I appreciate hearing
Fun
those.
winter activities, and honestly, I can't wait till it's over at this point. So
Me too.
bring on the muddy March, please.
Yeah. Now to the takeaways, and I don't
Yes.
mean what an Englishman picks up as carry out. Sports. Yeah, I tried. It's a good joke.
Yeah.
So sports, hockey faces an uphill climb in a society where essentially football reigns supreme. Hopefully the commissioner's listening and he's going to take to heart all those amazing, insightful points we made, right?
Yes.
Finance, all the chips are on the table. I hope the U.S. is not bluffing.
Do you guys like that? A little poker reference? I hope so.
I liked it.
Okay.
And then so Mark, you have some pretty serious thoughts about winter, and
Yeah.
I tell you, buddy, spring, it's not really around the corner. So stay warm. Listen to podcasts. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm. That's a wrap, right? Episode 11?
Yeah, episode 11. Episode 11. So you, at this point, you know where to find us.
Yes.
And if you don't, I'm not sure how you're hearing this, but thank you anyway. But for real, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify and Google Podcasts, and tell a friend about us. And as always, thanks for listening. Until next week, Mark, stay well. And this has been Let's Get Into It.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The content in this podcast is not intended to be a research report, financial, or life advice, and does not constitute an endorsement of any product, service, individual, or organization.